What's up guys, welcome back to a new video. We are back here with the little DE that could. So, the next issue that we had with this combination, I'm not sure if I think I talked about it right at the end of the last episode, but this engine came to us with one of those nasty cheap Chinese stainless manifolds. To this day, I have no idea what turbo those are designed to fit around, because the way that they angle the turbo flange is like pointed directly at this cover, and I've never been able to fit any turbo onto them that didn't contact the cover and cause a problem. So really weird, not sure what the go is, but the best and cheapest and easy way for us to get out of it was for me to just cut and re-angle the flange, the T3 flange on the manifold, which is what I've done. So we've got here the little manifold. It was an absolute bitch to weld. It was literally just about the hardest thing I've had to weld, having to get in there, but it turned out not too bad considering. As you can see, getting into all these parts with a TIG torch, not very easy. Particularly our TIG, we've only got a 26 torch, we don't have a 9, which is what we really need, which is a much nicer, smaller, compacted torch. But anyway, that's pretty much how we ended up with this manifold, and it's welded as hell. That's 2 passes. I did like a root and then a cap, so it's about as welded as the thing's ever going to get, and the angle is fixed, and I'll show you what it looks like. There you have it guys, that is our new Mamba GDX 3076 0.73 T3 rear housing. On our manifold it's all fixed. Obviously welding this really pulls the flange right out of flatness. It's just the heat that gets pumped into it. So I've still got to get this manifold over to our boys there at Kingato in Nanango and get them just to mill this flange, and I'll probably just get them to do the actual head flange as well, just to make sure that this manifold's you know, all flattened. Hopefully it lasts quite a bit. The issue that you have with cheap Chinese stainless is because of the work hardening. We do find they do like to crack, but again, it's one of those things. We can only do what we can with what we've got, and this is what we've got, and this is what we can do, so that's what we've done. So anyway, the turbo fits, looking awesome. Pretty excited for this thing. Yeehaw! So that's one step closer. Alright, so this is the next piece of the puzzle. We've got ourselves a new Raceworks rail to suit an RB25 with our new Expert, or Bosch 1000cc injectors to go into this thing so that we can make the power that we want. This thing came with just some Bosch, they're good injectors, but they're just way too small for what we want to do. It also had this purple rail on it. I'm not sure where the rail came from, I'm pretty sure it's just like an eBay setup. But the spaces and everything that came with the rail and even the sizing of the bosses just didn't make any sense. I think that's why the injectors were the way they were when we pulled them out. You remember from the last episode, they were pretty shocking. So I decided just to leave that off and just buy a rail to suit the new injectors so that we've got all new stuff that I know works. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with these injectors. They are good, genuine Bosch injectors, just the fact that they're way too small for this application. So another problem that we've come across, because of this intake manifold being a cheap, nasty Chinese thing, people always ask me, I think a lot of people asked me in the last episode as well, what I think about these, you know, cheap China Freddy plenums and that sort of thing. And I always say the same thing. It's pretty much goes for everything that you can buy on eBay. All of these parts that you can buy, except for fuel parts. Don't ever buy fuel stuff off eBay. But if you've got the knowledge and the tools and can make it work yourself, they are a good option for a cheap way to get out of a forward-facing plenum, essentially. You know, if you can do this yourself in the shed, if you've got the understanding and the tools to make it work, then they're not too bad. You never get one cheaper. But that being said, I've never had one of these plenums that I didn't have to modify quite heavily to get to work, including the Zach Baldy one. So if you go back and watch our installation of the Freddy plenum on the Zach Baldy car, it's exactly the same. We had to do a lot of modification to actually get that to work. So if you're doing it yourself, it's okay. But as soon as you start paying someone like me labor to try and make this stuff work, you'll almost always end up worse off. It'll almost always cost you more in the long run when you're paying someone like me to do the labor to get it to work. So the issue we're having at the moment is that the injector seats don't fit in the injector bosses in the manifold. They are simply not big enough. We've got a little hone for doing brake master cylinders and stuff. As you can see, I've given these a fair whack even with the hone, trying to hone them out a bit to try and get these injector seats to fit, and they just don't. They're just too small. The bosses are too small. And I think that's why when we pulled this apart, someone had put the injector O-rings underneath the pintle. I think that's why everything was asked about facing back to front, because I reckon whoever did it, even with the last injectors and rail, had trouble, had the same issues. And you know, playing with fuel system stuff like this, it's not something you want to MacGyver. It's not something that you can just fart ass around and find a solution that makes it work. Like you can if you definitely know what you're doing, but you really need all this stuff to seal, otherwise you're going to end up burning your car down. So it's not, fuel stuff is not really something you want to play with lightly. So I'm going to have to find another solution for how we're going to get this to work. I think this manifold's going to have to come back off, and I'm probably going to have to machine these bosses out a bit more. Either that or try and find another solution for the injector seat. I'd probably feel better about just machining the bosses out a bit more, because like for the reasons I just stated, making sure that I know that it's right and I know that it seals properly, rather than modifying the actual injector seats. But anyway, another issue to overcome, which is gonna add more time to it. My plan was to hopefully be getting this in the car right now. The issue is this week just turned to crap, ended up way behind on heaps of stuff, and it's just another one of those weeks where everything's been pushed out. So we're only finally getting these in now, and we've got another issue to come across, which is going to be more time, more issues. It is one of those things. I did it, guys. We got there. Freaking hell, what a mission. I've assisted with the hone, using the heat gun to heat it all up and put these in the freezer. And I freaking cannot feel my fingers, and it looks like I murdered a family of rubber grease, but they're in there. Jesus Christ almighty, that was a painful process and took a long time, but at least they're in there and we can go on with getting our injectors in now. So next issue we've got, rail doesn't fit the manifold properly. The holes for mounting the actual rail just don't line up at all. It's totally wrong angle, so gonna have to modify the rail, just like I had to do to the last rail I had to put on one of these. So, heaps of fun. More time that has to get paid for. Alright, what a bloody time. Ended up having to use washers on these, probably hard to see because of that cover, but you can see the spacings didn't line up again. None of the spacings were correct, which is a lot to do with how the manifold is designed, not so much the rail. And all of this is bringing back very fond memories now of the Baldy machine, the STD33, when we did the rail and the 1000cc injectors on that Freddy. We had the same issue. What we did at that time was we actually used one of the longer spacers and cut them down, but what I decided to do this time is just use washers to space the shorter ones up. But either way, got it sorted. Had to modify, elongate the actual holes in the mount points, but we got it on there and it fits. We've got our fittings, and that is our Raceworks rail with our expert 1000cc injectors ready to go for this thing when it goes back in the car and gets the Adaptronic modular plug-in put in it. So that's how to turn a simple injector and rail install into like 4.5-5 hour fiasco. Anyway guys, like I said, that's a lot of labor time. That's a lot of dollars for labor. So like I said, if you were doing this yourself and you could cop the time, it's still a cheap way out of having a forward facing. But you're paying someone like me that sort of hours, that's going to come back and bite you in the ass. So anyway, this is ready to go in the car now pretty much. I just got to get this manifold sorted, which I'll do on Monday. Take it to the machine shop there at Kingato and get it sorted, and this will be ready to go. So I'm just having a look through the box that the turbo came in and with all the line kits. So the Mumba and Kinagara are awesome in the way that they come with all the lines and shit normally. Now I was under the impression this was a specific RB line kit and that it would have all the fittings we'd need, things like the block fitting for the water, which is a metric, but it's definitely just a generic kit. It's not actually a RB specific kit, which is a bit of a pain. It's not that big of a deal. It just means that I'll need to buy probably one fitting and make one water line for the feed line for the water, I think. But anyway, you get that. That's not that big of a deal, really. Righto, guys, it's been a hot minute, but look at what is finally back inside the shed. This thing has been eluding me for so long. You all know the story. It's really a big pain. But anyway, we've got some time over the Christmas break that I can just get in, and this thing is just going to get finished from here on. It's just in here to get finished, and that's it. It's been a few important developments though. So the owner managed to find himself a rebuilt, basically completely refurbed RB25DE+t gearbox. So we do have a big box to go into this thing, which is exciting because that's pretty much the last bit of the puzzle that we were really waiting on to push this thing to basically as far as this turbo will go. It's only a 0.73 T3 housing, or 0.74, whatever it is, AR. on the T3-3076. So it's no huge turbo. Being that this is a street car, that was the idea. Most of you know. If you don't, go back and watch episodes 1 and 2 of this build. You'll learn a lot more about why I chose that. But anyway, it's awesome that we've got that gearbox, but it does present a few other issues and a little bit extra work in the car. Firstly, we need to adapt to the tail shaft. We need to find an R33 front half or GTST front half tail shaft to work. We need to modify the gearbox crossmember to work, or find one out of a turbo car. I'm leaning towards modifying the gearbox crossmember because at this stage it's easier and cheaper than finding second-hand stuff right now. I've got a new slave for it, so we need a new slave to suit the GTST box, but apart from that, it should use the same shifter, clutch fork, bearing carrier and bearing for the throwout. All of that should still be the same, so that should be nice and dandy. But anyway, it's going to be cool. We've got a manifold back. It's been all skimmed and straightened, and we're all ready to go with that. So yeah, basically let's get into this thing, get it friggin' sorted. So when the boys at King Auto machined the manifold, they actually had to take the wastegate off. You would have seen that I was trying to avoid taking the wastegate off the manifold the whole time. And what they found was that, lo and behold, there is no seal ring inside the wastegate on the manifold. So not unheard of, not uncommon for people that don't particularly know what they're looking at. So I'm really hoping that I can find the seal ring in the car somewhere, because there's nowhere else. Otherwise, I'm hoping I might have one that'll fit it, maybe. I don't know. But that might be an issue we'll have to sort out. But anyway, plenty to go. Got our engine here. Started piecing it back together. I didn't realize when I pulled it apart, but this AC idler is actually screwed. It's broken. It's not going to work. I'm pretty sure I have a spare whole bracket with an idler out in the container, so I should just be able to swap that out completely. Still waiting on the fitting for the water feed to get here. So it just so happens that our mate that bought the white R31 that Rex and I built at the start of last year with the turboed RB30 with the RB25 box in it, we originally sold that to him with a 2-piece tail shaft to suit RB25 gearbox into R31. But he continuously had issues with center bearings, so he ended up with the single piece tail shaft out of Luke's EH that has my old running gear out of my old 31 in it that broke the first tail shaft and had, yeah.
Gearbox ain't in it that well.
No, that gearbox is gone. But yeah, it's funny how all that worked. But anyway, so what I'm trying to say is he ended up with a single piece, and so I know that there is a 2-piece tail shaft to suit an RB25 gearbox over there. Now, what I don't know is whether someone's just taken a standard R33 turbo front half and used it on the 31 rear half to make that work. I'm hoping that's the case, because I'm going to get it here and steal the front half, and hopefully I can just put the front half onto the existing rear half of this tail shaft, and I'm really hoping that all goes together, because that would save us a lot of messing around trying to find stuff. It would work really well. So fingers crossed that's right. But alright, sorry guys, but just because it's been so long and there's so much to do, I really just want to smash this out, so I haven't been filming a lot as I go. But got the old gearbox out. You know, the old exhaust, everything's out. Just gave the engine bay just a quick degrease. At this point, we're pretty much ready. I'm ready to start getting the engine in tomorrow morning. Still a bit on the engine to do, but like it'd be a lot easier to do it before it goes in. A lot of the stuff that I'm waiting for, a lot of the fittings and stuff I'm waiting for. But this car has just been so delayed by so many things for so long, and the fact that it's finally in here, I just want to do it. Got rid of the relays, or the relay for the thermo fans. They're going to go. It's funny, you know, the way it all works, and you start to piece everything together after you've seen stuff. Like these cheap Chinese thermos are trash. They don't work. I've tried them in lots of things. They just simply do not draw enough air. They don't work properly. And you know, then there was the fact that the water pump on this thing was rooted, and obviously they were having overheating issues, so there was no thermostat in it. So you know, all of it starts to make sense when you piece it all together. But we're going to just ditch the thermos altogether because they're no good. The other thing about RBs is that they only have a 70 amp or a 75 amp alternator or something. So to run a good set of thermos, you really need to upgrade the alternator to an LS1 alternator. By the time you upgrade to an LS1 alternator and then buy a decent set of thermos, that's a lot of cost. When the stock viscous fan hubs on these things, just the clutch fan, they're so efficient, they work so well. As long as you don't want to rev them to the moon, nothing wrong with the clutch fan on these things. They're awesome. So we're going to go back to a clutch fan for that reason, and ditch the thermos and that, and go back to simple. Keep it simple. KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. I'd also forgotten about how clean the interior is on this thing until I got in there to disconnect the shifter, get the shifter out of the box. So super nice in there. It's it worries me because he's got gauge pods on the dash, and that's where we plan on putting the wideband, and then I think there's another 2 gauges in the boot. Oh, that's the other thing. I found the seal ring for the wastegate, so that's all good. But I'm really worried about running the wires for these gauges because I don't know where to penetrate the dash, and I don't want to put any holes in the dash. So anyway, later problem. But now after getting this tail shaft out and having a look at it, I do not believe that my plan with the other front half is going to work, because the R31 tail shafts, they don't actually have a uni in the center. They've got like a weird CV joint with like a 6-bolt ring. So simply unbolting the front half of that other shaft and putting it on the shaft, that's not going to work. But I mean, at the very least, I can get it. At least we'll have an RB25 yoke. And at the very least, I don't know, we might be able to sort something out, even if I just take it to a shafting shop and get them to modify the front half or something. We'll figure it out. Alright, so we're going to crack on a bit longer with this engine in the engine room today, because it's mighty hot and it's nice and AC in here, and I would like to actually get all this manifold and everything on before it goes in the car, because it's way easier to get everything and make sure it's all tight and right. So I've got Rex on the way back at the moment with the water fitting that I need for this. I was just going to pull this out and seal it up, and I noticed that it's sort of been drilled out, but like quite small really. So I'm going to actually drill that out a bit more, make it a bit bigger, and then I'll seal it back into there properly. But the way it's sort of small and then offset towards the top means that a lot of that oil is going to pool there in the bottom, which I'd really just rather not happen. So I'll drill that out a bit. I still need to clean this manifold out from when it was machined and give it a good clean up. That's a bit more like it. It's a bit nicer. Just looking at this actually a bit closer, I think I'm going to clean this up on the wire wheel and have a go at welding it a bit nicer. It looks like it might have been sealing, but might just try and get a bit of a nicer weld on it, I think. Alright, so I didn't really make it much prettier, but I'm a bit more confident that it's not going to leak now, at least. So at the very least there's that. Then with the RB, I'd sort of forgotten how much the RB sit on a lean, and this drain is actually going to be sort of way on the outside of the manifold, so that should actually be a lot easier than I had originally anticipated. That shouldn't be a problem really. So I should be able to keep it far enough away from that collector that I should just be able to use like soft line with some heat protection over it, same as like the head drain there, and I shouldn't have to worry too much about making a hard line. So that makes that fairly simple. Righto, boys and girls, it's been a horrific day for me. Nothing to do with this, but left my wallet in the customer's car and had to go get it, and it's just been crap. I lost heaps of time. Nowhere near as far as I wanted to be today, but regardless, we are getting there. So the manifold's actually on, gasket, turbo's on, the manifold on. We're having fun here. As you can see, new lines, new oil feed line up there. That's our new water feed line from that fitting there. Runs high, try and keep it out of the heat as best as we could. And that's going to be the oil return, which just goes to a barb, but that's away from the heat, so that can just be soft line, and we'll find somewhere to tee that into. And then the drain will just come down around here, and just like the drain from the head, it'll have that heat protection on it, and we should be happy days for that as well. So righto, turbo drain sorted. Got our steering in the wastegate this time. Yeehaw. Righto guys, we're cracking along. Every time I think I'm ready to get this thing in the car, I'll think of something else that I really want to do before it goes in. Anyone who's owned like an RB25 or RB powered car with one of these plenums would understand how difficult it is to get at anything on this side of the engine. So really want to make sure that anything that I can do to make it easy for myself, I will before it goes in, because there's no advantage to getting it in a hurry and then having to fight the thing to get the other things done. Doesn't really make any sense. Although it's a nice big milestone to get to, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So he's got a couple of just Chinese gauges that he bought. There's 3 gauge pods up on the dash that he planned to take up. One of them's boost, one of them's water temp, one of them's oil pressure. Awesome. However, the Japanese were so nice to actually put an oil pressure gauge in the cluster. These things aren't just a low pressure light, they actually do have a gauge, so it was very important that I maintain that function, I think. So I've set up a T-piece, found a 1/8 ABT T-piece to block T off the oil pressure there. So trying to do stuff like that while the engine's in the car with this plenum on would be not fun at all. So just trying to cover all that stuff. But yeah, it's looking pretty good. You know, all our turbo lines are sorted except for this return, which should tee in somewhere. But you know, wastegate's on, our steering's in it. It's getting real close. Just gonna keep going through the boot of the car at everything that's in there, all the things that were supplied, because there's so much that I forgot about that we actually talked about when he dropped the car off. So just trying to sort of refresh my memory on everything that's meant to be happening with this thing. The other thing I really want to do today is inspect the clutch. I can't really remember what the clutch was like that came off it. I think it might have been fairly sad, but I think at the time, because we were only running the small box, I wasn't that worried, because we weren't going to push it, A, and B, if it did slip, it'd probably actually save the box. So I think I was pretty happy just to rerun it. But now that we're looking at the big box and a bit more power, I want to have a look at that clutch and make sure I'm happy with it. Make sure it's going to be happy to push a bit more juice. But it is getting ready. It's getting real close to going in the car. Alright, so I was wrong. The AC bracket that I've got out in the container must be from like a VL or a Patrol RB, because it's a little bit different. Obviously it's the Suda 30 and it's got a different pulley and stuff on it. It's for a V-belt. It's just a different bracket, so that sucks because I really thought I had one there. So I tried to get this pulley off, but it is proper cooked. I had to hammer the nut out of where it was broken. It must have been like that when it came off. I don't particularly remember it being like that when it came off, but there's nothing that could have happened here that would have done that. But anyway, it's like proper cooked. Whatever holds the back of this captive in this little unit here is obviously broken. I can't unscrew it. I can't get the pulley. Yeah, it's cooked. So I'm gonna have to probably cut this off and see what I can do about this, or just find another bracket. But either way, that's a bit of a pain. And I was right about this clutch. That is what I thought. I remember pulling it off and thinking, you know, it's not heaps of meat, but it's an Exceedi friction plate. And I remember just thinking, because he was on a budget and because of putting the 20 box back in it, that it would probably be alright. Righto guys, so I've confirmed with the owner that we are actually going to upgrade the clutch. Same deal, the things are going together hopefully for the final time in a very long time with all the right parts. So we'll upgrade the clutch to suit so that he doesn't have to worry about that in future. So that's that. Suffice to say, obviously the engine's not going to be going in today, now that we're going to wait for that. But either way, I think that will do for an episode. So should not be a big long break between episodes anymore, because this thing is just going to stay on that hoist until it's finished at this point. A few things to sort out obviously, but we'll be back very soon with some more R33 content. As always guys, thank you for tuning in. Smash like, smash subscribe so you don't miss anything, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace out, see you, bye.